Welcome back to my channel where I tinker with code to make games. And today what we're doing is we are implementing the queue and the input for our player board here. So let's take a look at what's happening first. I set up a queue. The Tetrominos are spawning off to the left. I set a queue size of 3. And then I set up input so that when I press the input button, which is just going to be the mouse click, I'm going to get a little message up here. It's going to pop one off at the top of the queue, insert another one at the bottom, and then this will be in play. But currently it doesn't follow anything. But that's about it. Let's look at how we did it. So let's come over to the code. First thing is the input. So I wanted to use the new enhanced input section, or the new enhanced input system. What I'm trying to say. And to implement that in C++, I don't know if there's any templates that do this. This is something that I figured out in a Udemy course, and they just kind of like walked through the blueprints and set it up. But in order to do that, you have to modify the build file, and then you have to delete some files out of the up here. So if you want to do it too, you have to open up build, where build, then you have to add enhanced input here. And what enhanced input is actually doing is it's adding the ability to like remap things in during runtime, remap input during runtime. So this is like really making things easier for the programmer to allow customizable controls in your game. But you need to add this module in, and then once you add that in, you have to delete your workspace, the saved, intermediate, binaries, and VS Code. Delete all those, and then you have to go down here, right click. If you're on Windows 11, you'll have to go to Show More, and then generate Visual Studio project files, and then you'll be good to go. Then it'll start recognizing the enhanced input. But if not, you can just stick with blueprints, and that's all. There's templates for that and everything. But anyway, the next thing I'm doing is I'm binding actions to set Tetromino move target and setting the moving target ending. And these are where the logic is going to get handled to set the in play Tetromino. If it's a null pointer, it will pop one off of the queue. It'll set the position to the top center, which is just a uScene component that I set up. And then we're going to add one more to the queue. And that's about it. But in begin play up here, before the game even starts, I set up a queue size of 3, and it's just going to loop through, add Tetromino to queue 3 times. So it's all ready to go with a queue before you even start playing. Later, this is just kind of some boilerplate stuff here to make sure that it was working. G-Engine has an on-screen debug message, and that was the little blue thing you were seeing up in the corner. So that's where I'm setting the color. I forget what that second one is. Time to display. So I'm only displaying it for 1 second. And then this first integer is the key. So if you don't put a key, it'll just overwrite whatever the last message is. Or I think it'll like stack them on top of each other. But this kind of like gives them a line that it'll stick to instead of overwriting each other and flooding your screen. But this was just to make sure that it was working. And then after I knew that the input was working, I implemented this code to pop the Tetromino off of the queue. As for the queue itself, oh yeah, just real quick, I disabled tick because I don't know that I'm actually going to need to tick in the player board. I think a lot of things are going to be handled by the Tetromino's timers for movement and whatnot, but I don't even know if the Tetrominos will need to tick. So performance reasons and just, I don't know, even though nothing's really getting called in here other than super, it still can save you some performance by not having to like jump around in the code. So yeah, I disabled tick, and I don't remember if I talked about this yet, But I went through and I added default values for all of the collision, yeah, the top cut and the camera. All this is set up so that sometimes whenever you build or make like really big changes, I've noticed that all of your components or sub objects will yeah, I guess component is the right terminology. Yeah, so all of your components will revert back to default values, which is usually like 000, something like that. And that can be a real pain because then you have to go through and like manually reset all of these. So by setting them up in the constructor, it has this default value, and if that bug or whatever it is ever happens to me again, there's just a little arrow that I can reset to defaults, and it'll automatically pick what I have set here, which is exactly what I set up in the blueprints. It's just in code now. Yeah, so camera position. These might be new, so they're just uScene components. Basically, all they are is a location. That's it. That's all I'm using them for anyway. And they are showing where the beginning of the Tetrominos, well, this is where they spawn, where the beginning of the queue is, and then the top center of the board. So it just gives me a handy variable to teleport in the new Tetrominos as they spawn in. And then the top center gives me a handy spot to teleport the one that's in play so that it doesn't have to like move around the actual board or anything. I don't think I have collision set up. It might work anyway, just on default. It probably just blocks everything, but that I'm not positive about. Haven't tested it yet. But yeah, that about covers everything. We got input, we got the queue coming up, and then we're popping one off. And next time we're going to go through and implement moving logic and probably collision. So we'll take one last look at what we've accomplished here and marvel in it. Beautiful. We're getting closer to actually having some game logic. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, and I'll see you in the next one.